This 4-year-old beggar girl says they threw hot coffee on me, but a millionaire sees everything and does something that shocks everyone. Comment what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The scream sliced through the humid afternoon air in Savannah, Georgia, like a knife, echoing across Forsyth Park, where flower vendors displayed their colorful wares under the southern sun. Richard "Rich" Montgomery, 52, stopped abruptly on his daily walk, dropping the Wall Street Journal he was reading as he headed to the bank, his eyes fixed on the small figure on the ground, a girl of about 6 with tangled brown hair and a tattered dress that had seen better days. "They threw hot coffee on me," the child cried, pointing desperately at a group of street food vendors quickly dispersing among the park benches. Tears mixed with dirt streamed down her face as she tried to protect her left arm, where a red, swollen mark betrayed the assault. Rich felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He knew that feeling, the same helplessness he had experienced so often as a kid when the older boys at school would bully him on the playground. The difference was that now he had the power to act, the resources to make a difference. Without hesitating, the businessman rushed towards the girl, ignoring the curious stares of passers-by who gathered around, more interested in the spectacle than in offering help. He knelt beside her, noticing how she recoiled instinctively, her eyes wide with fear. "Hey, sweetie, it's okay now," he said in the gentlest voice he could muster, even with anger boiling in his veins. "No one's going to hurt you anymore." The girl watched him suspiciously, still sobbing. "It hurt real bad," she mumbled, showing him her injured arm. "I just wanted a little hot chocolate 'cause I was hungry." The words hit Rich like a punch to the gut. He remembered how many times he had gone hungry as a child, how need turned kids into easy targets for adult cruelty. Without thinking twice, he took off the blue dress shirt he was wearing, an expensive piece imported that his wife Eleanor had picked out for him, and gently wrapped it around the girl's shoulders. The murmuring around them intensified. People pointed, whispered, took photos with their cell phones. Richard Montgomery, one of the most respected businessmen in the region, was shirtless in the public square, tending to a street kid as if she were his own daughter. "What's your name, honey?" he asked, lifting her carefully into his arms. "Lily," she replied, resting her head on his shoulder with a trust that surprised him. "Lily Johnson. Well, Lily Johnson, let's get that burn looked at." The drive to St. Joseph's Hospital was a silent torment. Rich felt the weight of the child in his arms, but also the weight of the judging stares that followed them. He knew those people, clients, suppliers, neighbors. He knew exactly what they were thinking. What kind of man abandons his appointments to take care of a strange girl? In the emergency room, he faced more obstacles. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with thick glasses, looked him up and down with disdain. "Are you the guardian?" she asked in a tone that made her suspicions clear. "I am now," Rich replied, surprising himself with his own determination. While they waited for treatment, Lily remained glued to him, as if sensing that this man represented safety in a world that had only offered her violence. Rich watched her silently, noticing details that others would ignore, the intelligence in her dark eyes, the way she absorbed everything around her with a natural curiosity, the delicate way she touched the fabric of his shirt, as if she had never felt anything so soft. "Do you have family, Lily?" he asked gently. The girl shook her head, her eyes filling with tears again. "I live at the shelter with the other kids. Miss Patty takes care of us, but she has a lot of kids to take care of." Rich felt his heart clench. He knew the county shelter. His company had donated supplies for renovations a few times, but he had never been directly involved. He had never put a face to the children who lived there. When they were finally seen, the doctor confirmed that the burn was not serious, but would require constant care in the coming days. Rich paid all the treatment costs, bought the necessary medicines, and against all hospital protocols, insisted on taking Lily back to the shelter himself. The car ride was revealing. Lily, now more relaxed, began to talk about her life at the shelter, about the friends she had there, about her drawings. Apparently, she spent hours drawing landscapes she saw in the books of the small local library. "I draw pretty places," she explained, gesturing excitedly. "Places where people are happy and no one throws hot coffee on kids." Rich had to pull the car over for a moment, pretending to check the GPS while fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. There was something about that girl that touched a deep wound in his soul, something he couldn't name, but that made him want to protect her from all the evil in the world. When they arrived at the shelter, a simple two-story building, painted a faded yellow, they were greeted by Patty Miller, a woman of 38, with tired but kind eyes. She examined Rich from head to toe, clearly suspicious of the presence of a wealthy businessman at her door. "Lily, honey, where have you been?" she asked, hugging the girl with a mother's affection. "I told you not to go out alone." "Some men threw hot coffee on me, Miss Patty," Lily explained, showing the bandage on her arm, "but Mr. Montgomery helped me." Patty looked up at him, and Rich saw in them a mixture of gratitude and skepticism. "Mr. Montgomery, isn't it? Your company donated materials for the roof repair last year." "Yes, that's me, and I'd like to know how I can help Lily with the burn treatment." "That's very kind of you, but don't worry. The shelter has an agreement with St. Joseph's." Rich perceived the professional coldness in Patty's voice, but also noticed how she instinctively protected Lily, placing herself between them. He respected the woman's attitude. She was right to be cautious. "I understand," he said, handing her a business card, "but if you need anything, please call me." As he prepared to leave, Lily ran to him and hugged his legs. "Thank you for helping me, Mr. Montgomery. You're different from the other adults." That night, Rich arrived home later than usual, finding Eleanor, his wife of 45, in the living room with an irritated expression on her face. Tommy, their 16-year-old son, was on the couch doing homework, but looked up when his father entered. "Where have you been?" Eleanor asked, immediately noticing that he was wearing a simple T-shirt instead of the dress shirt he had put on in the morning. "And what happened to your clothes?" Rich hesitated. He knew that explaining about Lily would be complicated, especially considering how Eleanor still struggled to overcome the loss of the daughter they had lost 10 years ago. Any mention of other children made her visibly uncomfortable. "I had a little incident downtown," he said vaguely. "Nothing serious." Eleanor studied him with suspicious eyes, but did not insist. Tommy, however, continued to watch his father, curiously, as if he sensed that something important was being omitted. That night, Rich couldn't sleep. He lay in bed going over the day's events, remembering Lily's face, her courage in facing the pain, how she had trusted him so naturally. There was something about that girl that awakened in him feelings that he thought he had buried forever, along with his daughter. When he finally fell asleep, he dreamed of a park full of flowers where a brown-haired girl drew impossible landscapes. On the ground, while in the distance echoed the sound of a voice calling his name, asking him not to abandon her as everyone else had done. Rich woke up with a strange feeling in his chest, as if something had changed irreversibly in his life. During breakfast, he watched Eleanor serve the coffee with the same mechanical precision as always, her movements calculated and distant. Tommy ate his toast in silence, but his eyes remained fixed on his father, as if he expected an explanation about the strange behavior of the night before. "I need to stop by downtown before going to the factory," Rich announced, getting up from the table. "So early?" Eleanor asked, frowning. "Don't you have a meeting with the suppliers only at 10? "I have some pending matters to resolve." The half-truth came out more easily than he expected, but left a bitter taste in his mouth. Rich had never lied to his wife, at least not about important things. But something inside him insisted that he needed to see Lily, make sure she was okay, that the bandage had been changed properly. The drive to the shelter seemed longer than the day before. Rich parked the car down the street and watched the morning activity through the window. Children of various ages played in the small inner courtyard, their voices creating a chaotic melody that contrasted with the silence of his own home. Patty appeared at the front door, carrying a basin with wet clothes. When she saw Rich, she stopped and stared at him with an unreadable expression. "Mr. Montgomery, I didn't expect to see you so early. I came to check on Lily. The bandage needs to be changed, and I'd like to make sure she has all the necessary materials." Patty studied him for a long moment, as if trying to decipher his true intentions. "She's fine. She slept well and already had breakfast." "Can I see her?" Patty's hesitation was evident. "Mr. Montgomery, I need to be direct with you. In 15 years taking care of these children, I've seen many well-intentioned people appear here, full of promises. Most disappear in a few weeks. I'm not most people. That's what everyone says in the beginning." Rich felt disarmed by the woman's raw honesty. "You're right to distrust me, but I can prove that my intentions are sincere." "How?" "Let me help. Not just with money, but with time, presence. Lily has touched me in a way I can't explain." Patty sighed, clearly fighting an internal battle. "She's special, that girl. Smarter than most of the kids who have passed through here, but also more emotionally fragile. I can't allow someone to enter her life just to disappear later." "I understand perfectly." "Mr. Montgomery," Lily's voice cut through the tension of the moment. She appeared running through the door, wearing a clean dress, probably a donation, and with the bandage still intact on her arm. Her face lit up when she saw him, and Rich felt something settle in his chest. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, kneeling to be at her level. "Better. Miss Patty said you paid for the medicine. No one has ever done that for me before." The simple words hit Rich like a punch. How many times had that child needed medical care and hadn't had it? How many nights had she slept in pain because there weren't enough resources? "Can I show you my drawings?" Lily asked, her eyes sparkling with animation. Rich looked at Patty, who after a moment of hesitation nodded. 10 minutes, she said. Then Lily needs to join the other children for morning activities. The small room that Lily shared with 3 other girls was Spartan but clean. Metal bunk beds, a shared dresser, and a small table where some faded crayons rested next to sheets of recycled paper. But it was what was drawn on those papers that left Rich speechless. The landscapes created by Lily were extraordinary for a 6-year-old. Minute details of mountains, rivers, houses with flowered gardens, smiling families in front of welcoming homes. Each drawing seemed to tell a story of hope, of places where pain did not exist. "Where did you see these places?" Rich asked, carefully leafing through the drawings. "In the books at the library, but I imagine what it would be like to live in them, you know? Where kids have rooms just for them, and parents don't leave." The painful innocence of the answer made Rich swallow hard. "You draw very well, Lily. You have a special talent." "You really think so?" "Miss Patty always says that, but I thought it was just to make me feel better." "It's true. You have a gift." Lily smiled, a smile so pure and genuine that Rich felt his heart break and recompose at the same time. At that moment, he made a decision that would change the course of his life. "Lily, would you like me to come visit you more often? We can talk about your drawings. Maybe I can bring you more materials." "You would do that, really? Really?" When Rich left the shelter half an hour later, he felt like a transformed man. He had promised Lily that he would return the next day, and the expression of joy on her face had been like a balm for wounds he didn't even know were still bleeding. At the factory, he tried to concentrate on work, but his mind kept returning to the girl. During the meeting with the suppliers, he caught himself thinking about what types of crayons he could buy, what art books would be appropriate for a 6-year-old. "Rich, are you listening to us?" The voice of his partner Robert cut through his reverie. "Sorry, I was thinking about personal matters." Robert raised his eyebrows. In 15 years of partnership, Rich had never been distracted during important meetings. The rest of the day passed in a haze of mechanical productivity. Rich signed documents, approved budgets, and made decisions without really being present. His mind was in a small room, with a bright-eyed girl showing him drawings of a better world. When he arrived home, he found Eleanor organizing old photo albums in the living room. She did this whenever she felt particularly melancholy, revisiting memories of happier times when they still had a complete family. "How was your day?" she asked, without looking up from the photographs. "Normal, and yours?" "I spent the afternoon cleaning the spare room," she quickly corrected herself. Rich knew she had almost said Isabella's room. Even after 10 years, Eleanor still struggled to talk about the daughter they had lost. The girl's room remained untouched, like a silent sanctuary of the pain they carried. "Eleanor, have you ever thought about getting involved in community work again? Maybe helping kids in need?" Eleanor looked up abruptly, an expression of alarm taking over her face. "Why are you asking this?" "Just thinking about ways to give our lives purpose, to make some difference in the world." "We already do our In part, your donations to charities are more than enough. But what if we could do more? Get involved directly?" Eleanor slammed the photo album shut harder than necessary. "Rich, you know how I feel about certain things. I don't want to relive unnecessary pain." The silence that followed was heavy, loaded with unspoken words and poorly healed wounds. Rich understood that he couldn't share his new discovery with his wife. At least, not yet. That night, after Eleanor fell asleep, Rich stayed awake planning his next visit to Lily. He thought about the art supplies he could bring, the stories he could tell, the ways to help her develop her extraordinary talent. But he also thought about Miss Patty and her warning about people who made promises and then disappeared. Was he different? Was his interest in Lily genuine or just a way to fill the void left by the loss of Isabella? When he finally fell asleep, he dreamed again of colorful drawings and a smiling girl. But this time, in the background of the dream, echoed a voice that asked, "How long will you stay?" In the following 2 weeks, Rich established a routine that completely transformed his daily life. Every morning, before going to the factory, he stopped by the shelter to visit Lily. He always brought something: new crayons, better quality paper, books with illustrations that she studied with a concentration impressive for her age. Miss Patty, initially resistant, began to observe the consistency of the visits with growing interest. Rich never failed to come, was never late, and more importantly, never made promises he didn't keep. Gradually, the director of the shelter began to relax her vigilance, allowing him to spend more time with Lily. "Mr. Montgomery, look what I drew today," Lily exclaimed on a sunny morning, running to him with a paper in her hands. The drawing showed a large house with large windows, a garden full of flowers, and in front a family of 3, a tall man, a long-haired woman, and a little girl, all holding hands. The technique had improved visibly since he began bringing better materials. "It's beautiful, Lily. Does this family in the drawing have a story?" "Yes. It's about a girl who lived alone, but then a kind man appeared and decided to be her daddy, and they lived happily ever after." Rich's heart squeezed. The simplicity with which Lily expressed her deepest desires was touching and painful at the same time. "And the mother in the story, where did she come from?" Oh, she showed up after they were already a family. Sometimes families are made like that, aren't they? First with some people, then others arrive. Lily's childish wisdom constantly surprised Rich. At 6 years old, she already understood instinctively that families could be formed in unconventional ways, that love did not necessarily depend on blood ties. "Mr. Montgomery," Lily said, lowering her voice as if to tell a secret, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetie. Do you have kids at home?" The question hit Rich like a punch in the stomach. How to explain to a 6-year-old about loss, about the emptiness that an absent daughter left in a father's life? "I had a daughter," he said carefully. "Her name was Isabella, but she had to go away a long time ago." "Where did she go?" "To a place very far away, where I can't visit her." Lily was silent for a moment, processing the information with the seriousness she always demonstrated when adults shared something important with her. "Do you miss her?" "Very much." "I understand," Lily said, placing her small hand on Rich's hand. "I also miss my mom, even though I don't remember her face very well. But Miss Patty says that sometimes people who go away send other special people to take care of us." Lily's perspective on loss and replacement was so pure, so devoid of bitterness, that Rich had to fight back the tears. That girl, who had suffered abandonment and neglect, still managed to see the world with hope. "You are very wise, Lily. Miss Patty teaches me those things. She says I'm special because I can see beauty even when things are difficult." During the drive to the factory, Rich reflected on how Lily was changing his perspective on his own loss. For 10 years, he had carried the pain of losing Isabella like a suffocating weight, something that prevented him from moving forward. But through Lily's eyes, he was beginning to see that perhaps there was room in his heart for a new kind of love, one that honored Isabella's memory without trying to replace her. At the factory, his employees began to notice subtle changes in his behavior. Rich smiled more, seemed less tense during meetings, showed more patience with problems that previously irritated him deeply. "Boss, can I talk to you?" asked Joan, his secretary of 8 years, entering his office at the end of the afternoon. "Of course, Joan. What do you need?" "It's about you. We've all noticed that you seem different in recent weeks. Happier, if I may say so," Rich smiled. "Is it that noticeable?" "Very. And we want you to know that we're happy to see you like this. It's been a while since we've seen you smile so often." That night during dinner, Tommy broke the silence that had become habitual in their family meals. "Dad, you've been acting weird lately." "Weird how?" Rich asked, trying to maintain a casual tone. "More present, like you found something you lost a long time ago." Eleanor looked up from her plate, clearly interested in her son's observation. "I've noticed it too. You've been coming home with a different energy." Rich felt cornered between his family's curiosity and the need to keep Lily a secret, at least until he better understood where that relationship would lead him. "I've been thinking a lot about the purpose of life lately," he said, opting for a half-truth, "about how we can make a difference in the world." "What kind of difference?" Tommy insisted. "Helping people who need it, especially children." Eleanor's face closed immediately. "Rich, you know how I feel about this." "Eleanor, we can't live forever trapped in the past." "The past?" She got up from the table abruptly. "Are you calling our daughter the past?" "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant." Tears began to stream down Eleanor's face. "Isabella is not the past for me. She never will be. And if you're thinking about replacing her with other children, no one can replace Isabella," Rich said firmly. "But that doesn't mean we can't help other children who need it." Eleanor ran out of the room, her sobs echoing down the hallway. Tommy stared at his father with a confused and worried expression. "Dad, Are you thinking about adopting a child? Tommy's direct question caught Rich off guard. Adoption? The word had never consciously crossed his mind, but now that his son had verbalized it, it echoed in his head with surprising force. I don't know, son. I'm just exploring ways to help. Do you know a specific child? Rich hesitated. Tommy was intelligent, perceptive. It would be difficult to continue lying to him indefinitely. Maybe, he finally admitted. Can I meet her? Tommy, Dad, I was 10 years old when she passed. I remember what it was like to have a sister, and I know Mom never got over the loss, but I'd like to have a bigger family again. Tommy's confession surprised Rich. His son, who had always seemed content being an only child, actually missed having siblings. It's complicated, son. Because of Mom? Mostly. Tommy was silent for a moment. Dad, can I give you some advice? Sure. Don't let Mom's fear stop you from doing what you feel is right. She needs help to overcome the pain, but you can't stay trapped in her pain forever. Tommy's maturity at 16 impressed Rich. His son had grown up and developed his own perspective on the family dynamics, a perspective that was perhaps healthier than his parents'. That night, Rich lay in bed next to Eleanor, who pretended to be asleep but was clearly still awake. The silence between them was tense, loaded with unvoiced resentments and fears. Eleanor, he whispered in the darkness. She didn't answer, but he knew she was listening. I love Isabella, I always will, but I can't let my love for her stop me from loving other people. Other people or other children, she whispered back, her voice full of pain. Maybe both. Eleanor turned to look at him, her eyes glistening with tears in the darkness. Rich, I can't open my heart to another child just to run the risk of losing her too. What if we don't lose her? What if this time we can build something lasting? What if we don't? What if I get attached and then everything falls apart again? Rich reached out and gently touched his wife's face. Then we'll face it together, as we always have. But even as he said the words, Rich knew that Eleanor wasn't ready to share Lily with him, and for the first time in 20 years of marriage, he began to wonder if the love he felt for his wife would be enough to overcome the abyss that grief had created between them. A month after the first meeting, Rich's life had taken on a double and dangerous rhythm. During the day, he was the respected businessman of always, taking care of the factory business with the efficiency that his employees knew. But his mornings belonged entirely to Lily, and those hours became the most precious of his routine. That Tuesday morning, arriving at the shelter, he found a scene that left him alarmed. Lily was sitting alone in the courtyard, with her knees hugged to her chest and her face hidden between her arms. Her back trembled slightly, indicating that she was crying. Lily? What happened, sweetie? She raised her face, revealing red and swollen eyes. Mr. Montgomery, I thought you weren't coming anymore. Why would you think that? I always come. Because Johnny and Mary left yesterday. A family came to pick them up for adoption, and they said they had real parents now. Lily sobbed. And Carla, who slept on the bunk above mine, was transferred to another shelter because there wasn't any more room here. Everyone leaves, Mr. Montgomery. Everyone leaves me. Rich's heart broke hearing the girl's words. She had developed an abandonment anxiety that intensified with every change in her life. He knelt beside her and pulled her into a hug. Lily, look at me. I'm not leaving. I promise I'll keep coming to see you. But what if you get a real daughter? What if you get tired of me? The question hit Rich unexpectedly. How to explain to a 6-year-old that she had become more real and present in his life than anyone else in the last 10 years? Lily, you're special to me, very special, and there's no such thing as a real daughter. What exists is real love, and I feel that for you. Miss Patty appeared at the door of the shelter, watching the scene with a worried expression. She motioned to Rich, indicating that she wanted to speak with him in private. "Lily, how about you go get your new drawings to show me? I need to talk to Miss Patty quickly." The girl nodded and ran inside the building. Miss Patty approached Rich with a worried face. "Mr. Montgomery, I need to be direct. Lily is developing a very strong emotional dependence on you. In recent weeks, she constantly talks about your visits, tells the other children that she has a heart, Dad, and gets extremely anxious on the days when you don't show up. But I always show up. I know, and that's what worries me. Mr. Montgomery, what exactly are your intentions with this relationship?" Miss Patty's direct question forced Rich to confront feelings he had been avoiding examining. What did he really want? What was his ultimate goal with Lily? I want to help her, protect her, give her the opportunities she deserves. That sounds like someone who wants to be her father. The words hung in the air, like an unspoken truth. Rich realized that Miss Patty had verbalized something he himself didn't yet have the courage to fully admit. "What if that's what I want? Then you need to be honest with yourself and with her about your intentions, because raising hopes in a child who has already been abandoned several times and then not being able to fulfill what you promised, that can destroy her emotionally. I would never do that." "Mr. Montgomery, you're married, you have a family. How does your wife feel about Lily?" Rich's silence was more eloquent than any answer. Miss Patty sighed deeply. "She doesn't know." "Does she? It's complicated." "No, Mr. Montgomery, it's simple. Either you are prepared to fully assume responsibility for Lily with the support of your family, or you need to start gradually decreasing these visits before she gets hurt even more." At that moment, Lily came running back with a stack of drawings in her hands, interrupting the tense conversation between the adults. "Mr. Montgomery, look how many drawings I made for you." During the next hour, Rich examined each of Lily's drawings with genuine attention. There was a clear progression in her work, not only in the technique, but in the emotional complexity of the scenes she created. The recent drawings showed more elaborate families, more detailed houses, and always a tall male figure that clearly represented him. "Lily, can I keep some of these drawings?" "All of them," she exclaimed excitedly. "They're yours. I draw them thinking of you." As he said goodbye, Lily hugged him with an intensity that spoke of fear and love in equal proportions. "Mr. Montgomery, can you make me a promise?" "What is it?" "If you're going to leave, can you let me know beforehand, so I don't keep waiting for you to come?" The simple and devastating question echoed in Rich's mind all the way to the factory. Lily had learned to protect herself emotionally by asking for honesty about future abandonments. A 6-year-old shouldn't have that bitter wisdom. At the factory, Rich had difficulty concentrating. During the monthly meeting with the managers, he caught himself unconsciously doodling on the margin of his papers. Flowers, houses, figures of children, the same elements that Lily always included in her drawings. "Rich, are you okay?" Robert asked after the meeting. "You seem distracted lately." "I have some personal issues I need to resolve." "Want to talk? Sometimes it helps to have an unbiased ear." Rich considered the offer. Robert had been his friend for 15 years, as well as his partner, if anyone could understand his situation. "Robert, what would you do if you discovered you have the ability to drastically change a child's life, but it could cost you your marriage?" Robert raised his eyebrows, clearly not expecting such a specific question. "Is that hypothetical, or let's say it's a real situation?" "Well, I would say that both things, the child and the marriage, are important. But a child has no choice about her situation, while a marriage is built by two adults who can make decisions about how to handle challenges. What if one of those adults isn't willing to accept the child? Then you have a bigger problem that needs to be resolved. Rich, are you thinking about adoption?" The word again. Every time someone mentioned it, it seemed to become more real, more inevitable. Maybe. And Eleanor. Eleanor still hasn't gotten over the loss of Isabella. The idea of another child in the house terrifies her. Robert was silent for a moment, processing the information. "Rich, can I give you some advice as a friend?" "Sure. Don't make a decision like that hidden from your wife. Whatever choice you make, it needs to be made with total honesty. Otherwise, you'll end up losing both the child and the marriage." In that night, Rich arrived home determined to have an honest conversation with Eleanor. He found her in the kitchen, preparing dinner with mechanical movements that indicated that her mind was elsewhere. "Eleanor, I need to talk to you about something important." She stopped cutting the vegetables and looked at him. "About the child?" The direct question surprised him. "How did you—" "Rich, we've been married for 20 years. Do you think I wouldn't notice the changes in your behavior? The different schedules, the distractions, the way you stare into space with a smile on your face?" Rich pulled up a chair and sat down at the kitchen table. "Yes, it's about a child, a 6-year-old girl named Lily." Eleanor went back to cutting the vegetables, but with more abrupt movements. "And what does this Lily have to do with us? I found her being abused downtown a month ago. I took her to the hospital, learned her story, and since then, well, I've been visiting her at the county shelter." "Every day?" "Yes." Eleanor slammed the knife onto the board. "And you didn't think it was important to tell me this?" "I knew how you'd react." "How I'd react?" "Rich, you've been having a secret relationship with a child for a month and you expect me to react how?" "It's not a secret relationship, Eleanor. It's what? Fatherly love for a stranger? A need to replace Isabella? What is it, Rich?" Eleanor's words were like knives, but Rich recognized the pain behind the anger. "It's love," he said simply. "Love for a child who needs someone, and who somehow managed to touch a part of my heart that I thought had died with Isabella." Eleanor began to cry, silent tears that streamed down her face as she continued cutting vegetables. "Rich, I can't open my heart to another child. I can't run the risk of loving and losing again. What if we don't lose her? What if this time we could have a complete family again? What if we do lose her? What if I get attached to this Lily and then something happens to her? I wouldn't survive, Rich. I couldn't." At that moment, Tommy entered the kitchen, stopping abruptly when he realized the tension in the air. "Are you fighting about the girl Dad's visiting?" he asked, with a naturalness that surprised both parents. "How do you know about this?" Eleanor asked. "I heard you talking last night, and today I followed Dad to the shelter." Rich stood up abruptly. "You followed me? I wanted to meet her, the girl who made my dad smile again." The silence that followed was loaded with revelations and conflicting emotions. Tommy had discovered the truth on his own. Eleanor finally knew about Lily, and Rich found himself forced to confront the reality of his situation. "So?" Eleanor asked, her voice trembling. "What did you think of her?" Tommy looked at his father, then at his mother, as if carefully weighing his words. "She reminded me of Isabella, not physically, but in the way she sees the world, like she still believes in the goodness of people, even after everything she's been through." Eleanor let out a sob and ran out of the kitchen. Rich stared at his son, realizing that the young man had just forced a crisis that would forever change the dynamics of their family. The week following the revelation about Lily was one of the tensest in the history of Rich and Eleanor's marriage. The house, which had already become silent after the loss of Isabella, now breathed an atmosphere of Cold War that affected every gesture, every word, every look exchanged between the couple. Eleanor had locked herself in her own world of pain and resentment. She started leaving the house early, supposedly to meet friends or go shopping, but Rich knew she was avoiding any conversation about Lily. When they met during meals, the tension was palpable. "Did you go see her today?" Eleanor asked every night, her voice filled with a mixture of hurt and morbid curiosity. "I did," Rich replied honestly, determined not to lie anymore. "And how is she?" "Good." She asked why I seemed sad. These short and painful conversations were repeated daily, like a ritual of self-flagellation that both seemed unable to stop. Tommy, in turn, surprised his parents with his maturity. Instead of choosing sides, he tried to serve as a bridge between his parents' irreconcilable positions. "Mom, don't you think you should meet Lily before deciding how you feel about her?" he suggested during a particularly tense dinner. "I don't need to meet her to know that I can't handle another child in my life," Eleanor replied, cutting her steak with unnecessary force. "But don't you think it's unfair to judge a 6-year-old without even seeing her?" "Tommy, you don't understand. It's not about judging the girl. It's about protecting myself." Protecting yourself from what? From being happy again?" The 16-year-old's question echoed through the dining room like a gunshot. Eleanor dropped her fork and left the table without saying a word. Rich, meanwhile, discovered that his visits to Lily had become even more precious, but also more distressing. The girl, with her keen sensitivity, realized that something had changed in the dynamics of her relationship with him. "Mr. Montgomery, are you sad because I did something wrong?" Lily asked one morning, holding a drawing she had made for him. "No, sweetie, you've never done anything wrong. I'm sad for other reasons." "Adult reasons?" "Yes, adult reasons." Lily was silent for a moment, studying his face with the intensity of someone who has already learned to read expressions to survive. "Mr. Montgomery, do you have a family at home who doesn't like me?" The question hit Rich like a punch. How could a 6-year-old be so perceptive? "Why do you ask that?" "Because sometimes adults get sad when they have to choose between people they love, and you look like you have to choose." Rich knelt next to Lily, impressed with her ability to understand complex situations. "Lily, you are very smart. It's true that I have a family at home, and it's true that they're confused about you. They don't want you to come see me. They're afraid." "Afraid of me?" "Afraid of getting attached to you, and then something bad happening." Lily nodded gravely, as if that explanation made perfect sense to her. "I understand. I'm also afraid sometimes. Afraid of liking you too much and then you leaving like everyone else." The conversation left Rich emotionally exhausted. He left the shelter that morning with the certainty that he needed to make a definitive decision about the future of his relationship with Lily. At the factory, his productivity had plummeted drastically. Robert, concerned about his partner's emotional state, decided to confront him. "Rich, I need to talk to you. Your employees are worried, clients are starting to notice your distraction, and the financial results are being affected." "I know, Robert. I apologize." "Apologies don't solve anything. You need to decide. Either you resolve your personal situation or you're going to end up losing the business too." "What if I decide on adoption?" "Then you need to be prepared for the consequences, including the possibility of losing your marriage." "What if I decide to give up Lily?" Robert studied his friend's face carefully. "Honestly, I don't think you'd ever forgive yourself. And a child who has already suffered so much doesn't deserve to be abandoned one more time." That afternoon, Rich made a decision that would change everything. Instead of going straight home after work, he drove to the house of his mother-in-law, Donna Anna, a 72-year-old lady who has always had a special relationship with Eleanor. "Rich, what a surprise," said Donna Anna, opening the door. "Eleanor isn't here." "Actually, I came to talk to you, Donna Anna, about Eleanor." The lady invited him in, poured coffee, and sat down in the armchair where she used to crochet while listening to her stories. "Tell me everything," she said simply. Rich spent the next hour recounting the entire situation, from the first meeting with Lily to the current crisis in his marriage. Donna Anna listened in silence, asking only a few questions to clarify details. "Rich," she said finally, "do you know the story of how Eleanor reacted when she got pregnant with Isabella?" "I know she was very happy." "Not immediately. Eleanor was very afraid of being a mother, afraid of not being good enough, afraid of not being able to protect the child, afraid of loving too much and then suffering. She almost considered not having the baby." Rich was shocked. Eleanor had never mentioned those fears. What made her change her mind? "I told her that fear is natural, but that it can't be greater than love, and that a child who needs care can't be punished for the fears of adults." "And what did she say?" "That I was right, and that if something happened to the baby, at least she would know that she gave all the love she could while she had the chance." Donna Anna paused, adjusting her glasses before continuing. "Rich, the loss of Isabella broke my daughter in a way I didn't know was possible. She convinced herself that loving children is too dangerous, but deep down, I know she misses being a mother. How can I help her overcome that fear? Maybe it's not you who needs to help her. Maybe it's this." "Lily, what do you mean?" "Sometimes children manage to touch the hearts of adults in ways that other adults can't. Eleanor needs to meet Lily, not as a threat or a replacement, but as a person who needs love. She refuses to meet her. Then you need to create a situation where she doesn't have a choice. But be careful, Rich. If you force it too much, you could lose both of them." That night, Rich arrived home with a new perspective. He found Eleanor in the living room, leafing through a photo album of Isabella, something she did when she felt particularly melancholy. "Eleanor, can I sit with you?" She nodded without taking her eyes off the photographs. "I'm looking at these photos and remembering how Isabella loved to draw," she said softly. "Remember, she drew princesses and castles all over the house. I remember, and I remember how you encouraged her talent. I wanted her to develop her creativity. I wanted her to express herself through art." Rich took a deep breath before speaking. "Eleanor, Lily also draws. She has an extraordinary talent for a 6-year-old. Eleanor closed the album abruptly. "I don't want to hear about the similarities." "Why not?" "Because it's going to make everything more difficult. Or maybe it will make everything clearer." "Rich, you don't understand. If I allow that girl to enter my life, if I get attached to her and then something happens, what if nothing happens? What if this time we can protect a child who needs us?" Eleanor began to cry silently. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to take that risk again." "You don't have to take it alone. We're in this together." "Are we? Because so far you've made all the decisions about that child without consulting me." The accusation was fair, and Rich knew it. "You're right. I should have talked to you from the beginning. And now, what do you expect from me? I hope you'll at least meet Lily before deciding our future, that you give her and us a chance." Eleanor was silent for a long moment, wiping the tears from her face. "What if I can't love her? Then at least you will have tried. And what if I can love her, but then lose her too? Then at least she will have known true love while she was with us." Eleanor looked at her husband with an expression that mixed fear, hope, and resignation. "Okay," she said finally, "I'll meet her. But Rich, if I do this and I can't handle it, you need to promise me that you'll respect my decision." "I promise." "And you need to promise me that, no matter what happens, you won't let me face this alone." "I promise." That night, for the first time in a week, Eleanor and Rich slept side by side without the tension that had dominated their bed. But both knew that the real test was still to come, and that the meeting between Eleanor and Lily's meeting would determine not only the girl's future, but the fate of his own family. The meeting between Eleanor and Lily was scheduled for the following Saturday at the shelter itself. Richard talked to Miss Patty about the situation, explaining the delicacy of the moment and the importance of everything going well. "Mr. Montgomery, I need to warn you about something," Miss Patty said on the eve of the meeting. "Lily is extremely anxious. She knows it's an important moment and is afraid she won't please your wife." "How does she know?" "Because she's a very perceptive child. She's noticed that something has changed in your visits and managed to understand that it has to do with your family. Yesterday, she asked me if she was pretty enough for a mother to like her." The revelation broke Rich's heart. "What did you answer?" "I told her that she's perfect the way she is, but that sometimes adults need time to understand that." That Saturday morning, Eleanor woke up with an anxiety she hadn't felt in years. She changed clothes 3 times, styled her hair in several different ways, and during breakfast she barely managed to swallow her toast. "Mum, everything's going to be okay," Tommy said, noticing his mother's nervousness. "How can you be sure?" "Because I've met her, remember? And she's special. You'll realize that too." Eleanor looked at her son with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. "What if I can't, Tommy? What if I look at her and can only think about Isabella?" "Then you'll think about Isabella, but maybe it's good to remember that Isabella always wanted to have a little sister." Tommy's observation left Eleanor silent. It was true, Isabella always asked her parents to have a brother or sister, but they always postponed that decision, waiting for the right moment that never came. The drive to the shelter was made in silence. Rich drove, concentrated. Eleanor looked out the window with her heart racing, and Tommy, who had insisted on accompanying them, tried to ease the tension with comments about the weather. When they arrived at the shelter, Miss Patty greeted them with a professional smile, but Rich noticed the worry in her eyes. "Lily is in the courtyard," she informed them. "She asked you to go there." The shelter's courtyard was a simple space, with some trees and wooden benches. Lily was sitting under an oak tree, wearing her best dress, a light blue one that Miss Patty had chosen especially for the occasion. Next to her was a pile of carefully organized drawings. When she saw Rich approaching, accompanied by an elegant woman and a tall young man, Lily stood up slowly, smoothing her dress with her small hands. "Mr. Montgomery," she said, but her voice was lower than normal, revealing her nervousness. "Hi, sweetie. I want you to meet people who are very special to me." Rich knelt next to Lily, placing his hand on her shoulder to convey security. "This is Eleanor, my wife, and this is Tommy, my son." Lily looked at Eleanor with curiosity and a little shyness. "Hi, Mrs. Montgomery. Mr. Montgomery has talked a lot about you." Eleanor was paralyzed for a moment. The girl in front of her was small, delicate, with brown hair and dark eyes that reflected intelligence and vulnerability at the same time. There was something in her posture, in the way she held the drawings, that vaguely reminded her of Isabella. "Hi, Lily," she managed to say finally, her voice more hoarse than normal. "I made drawings for you," Lily said, showing the pile of papers. "Can I show you?" Eleanor nodded, still in a state of shock. Lily began to show the drawings one by one, explaining each detail with the enthusiasm she reserved for important matters. "This one is Mr. Montgomery helping a girl downtown," she said, showing a colorful drawing. "And this is a happy family in a house with a garden. And this one is special." The last drawing showed 4 figures in front of a house. A tall man, a long-haired woman, a young man, and a little girl. Everyone was smiling and holding hands. "It's you," Lily explained timidly. "I imagined what it would be like if we were a family." Eleanor felt tears begin to form in her eyes. The simplicity and sincerity of the drawing hit her in a way she didn't expect. "It's very beautiful," she managed to say. "You really like it?" Lily asked, her eyes shining with hope. I like it very much. You draw very well." Encouraged by the positive reaction, Lily began to relax. She began to talk about her routine at the shelter, about the other boys and girls, about how she liked to draw under the oak tree. "Mrs. Montgomery, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you also like to draw?" "I used to when I was younger," Eleanor replied, surprised by the question. "But I stopped a long time ago." "Why?" Because sometimes we stop doing things we like when we get very sad." Lily nodded gravely, as if she understood the explanation perfectly. "I understand. I also stopped drawing when I arrived here at the shelter. But Miss Patty said that drawing would help me feel better, and she was right. And did it help you?" "A lot. When I draw, I can imagine beautiful places and happy people. I can dream of good things." Eleanor was impressed with the girl's maturity. At 6 years old, Lily had already learned to use art as a form of therapy, as an escape from the difficult reality. "Lily, can you teach me to draw again?" Eleanor asked, surprising herself with the question. Lily's eyes lit up. "I can. I'd love to teach you." During the next hour, Eleanor found herself sitting on the floor of the courtyard, along with Lily, drawing flowers and trees on sheets of paper. It had been years since she had allowed herself to be so spontaneous that she didn't worry about her appearance or what others would think. Rich and Tommy watched the scene with emotion. Eleanor was smiling, a genuine smile that they hadn't seen in a long time. "Mrs. Montgomery, you draw very well," Lily praised, examining the drawing of a rose that Eleanor had made. "Thank you. You're a great teacher." "Mr. Montgomery gave me very beautiful crayons. Do you want to use them?" "Sure." As they colored together, Lily began to tell more about her life, about her fears and hopes. Eleanor listened carefully, fascinated by the girl's ability to find beauty and hope even in difficult circumstances. "Lily, have you ever thought about what it would be like to have a family?" Eleanor asked cautiously. "I think about it all the time. I draw about it almost every day." "And what would that family of your dreams be like?" Lily stopped coloring and looked at Eleanor seriously. "It would be a family where no one leaves, where people love each other even when they do wrong things, where there are hugs when you're sad and celebration when you're happy." "That sounds like a very special family." "It sounds like the family that Mr. Montgomery told me you are." Lily's observation caught Eleanor off guard. The girl had idealized the Montgomery family based on the stories that Rich told, creating an image of perfection that Eleanor herself knew did not correspond to reality. "Lily, not all families are perfect," Eleanor said gently. "Sometimes people who love each other also hurt each other." "I know," Lily replied, "but the important thing is that they forgive each other afterwards, right?" The simple wisdom of the girl touched Eleanor deeply. At 6 years old, Lily already understood concepts of forgiveness and reconciliation that many adults struggled to understand. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged Eleanor tightly. "Mrs. Montgomery, can you come back to see me?" Eleanor looked at Rich, then at Lily, and felt something stir in her heart, a feeling that she had forgotten since the loss of Isabella. "I can," she replied, surprising herself with her own certainty. "Promise?" "I promise." On the way back home, the Montgomery family traveled in a silence different from what they had experienced in recent weeks. It was no longer a silence of tension, but of reflection. "Mom, what did you think?" Tommy asked finally. Eleanor took a while to answer, processing her conflicting feelings. "She is special," she said finally. "Very special." "And now?" Rich asked. "Now I need time to think, but Rich." "Yes?" "You were right about one thing. She isn't a replacement for Isabella. She's a unique person, with her own qualities and needs." "Does that mean you're willing to consider?" "It means I'm willing to continue getting to know her better, but slowly, Rich, very slowly." That night, Eleanor dreamed of colorful drawings and a 6-year-old girl who managed to find hope even in the darkness. When she woke up, for the first time in months, she didn't remember dreaming about Isabella. But at the shelter, Lily spent the night awake, drawing a new version of her dream family, one where all the people had real smiles and where no one seemed to be afraid to love. The next 2 months brought a new and delicate routine to the Montgomery family. Eleanor had begun to accompany Rich on some visits to Lily, always carefully, always observing her own feelings as someone walking on dangerous ground. But it was precisely when things seemed to be heading in a positive direction that the first major storm struck them. One Tuesday morning, Rich arrived at the shelter to find Miss Patty visibly disturbed, pacing back and forth in the courtyard with a paper in her hands. "Mr. Montgomery, I'm glad you arrived. We need to talk urgently. What happened? Where's Lily? She's in her room, drawing since early this morning. But we received a call last night, a woman saying she's Lily's mother." The world seemed to stop around Rich. "What do you mean?" "Apparently, Lily isn't an orphan as we thought. Her mother, Valdete Johnson, works as a cleaner in Charleston and, well, she wants her daughter back." Rich felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "Is that possible, after so much time?" "Legally, yes. If she can prove that she's the biological mother and that she has the conditions to take care of the child, she can claim custody. But she abandoned Lily. How can she just show up now and demand her back?" Miss Patty sighed deeply. "Mr. Montgomery, the situation is more complicated than we imagined. We talked to the social workers yesterday, and we discovered that Valdete didn't abandon Lily because she didn't want her daughter. Then why? Out of desperation. She was unemployed, without money for food or housing. She brought Lily to the shelter temporarily until she could stabilize herself financially. But then she couldn't raise money to pick up her daughter, and over time, well, she let it pass." Rich leaned against the wall, trying to process the information. "And does Lily know this?" "No. She always believed that she was abandoned. We never told her that her mother maintained sporadic contact with us asking about her." "Sporadic contact?" "Valdete called from time to time, mainly on Lily's birthdays. She asked how she was, if she was in good health, if she had grown, but she never had the courage to visit her." The revelation completely changed Rich's perspective on the situation. Valdete wasn't the cruel mother who had abandoned her daughter. She was a desperate woman who had made an impossible decision and then failed to reverse the situation. What does she want now? She got a steady job, rented a small house in Charleston. She says she finally has the conditions to raise Lily properly. "And do you believe that?" Miss Patty hesitated. "Honestly, I don't know. Valdete seems sincere, but she also seems very emotionally fragile. Lily hasn't seen her in 2 years. For the girl, she's practically a stranger." At that moment, Lily appeared at the door of the shelter, holding a drawing in her hands. "Mr. Montgomery, I made a new drawing for you." Rich forced a smile, trying to hide the emotional turmoil he felt. "Let's see, sweetie." The drawing showed a family in a park, having a picnic. There was a large tree, a blanket on the ground with food, and 4 smiling people, clearly representing Rich, Eleanor, Tommy, and herself. "It's about the picnic I dreamed of yesterday," Lily explained animatedly. "We went to the park and ate sandwiches, and then you pushed me on the swing." Rich's heart broke. How to tell that child that her family dreams might never come true? "It's beautiful, Lily. You always draw things that make people happy. It's because I want everyone to be happy like I am when you come to visit me." During the visit, Rich had difficulty concentrating on Lily's words. His mind was filled with questions and fears. How would Eleanor react to the news? What would happen to the bond they had built? And most importantly, what would be best for Lily? When he left the shelter, instead of going straight to the factory, Rich drove to Donna Anna's house again. He needed advice from someone with experience and wisdom. "Donna Anna, I need your help once again." "Tell me, son." Rich reported the entire situation of Lily's biological mother. Donna Anna listened in silence, asking pointed questions to better understand the complexity of the situation. "And how do you feel about this?" she asked when he finished. "Confused, angry, afraid of losing Lily, but also guilty for feeling that way because, after all, she has a mother." "Rich, can I ask you a difficult question?" "Sure." "Are you worried about Lily's well-being or about your own pain of losing another daughter?" The question hit Rich like a slap in the face. He was silent for a long moment, honestly examining his motivations. "Probably both," he admitted finally. "That's human, Rich. But when it comes to the future of a child, what matters is what's best for her, not for us adults, and how to know what's best. By meeting this Valdit, evaluating her true conditions to take care of Lily, and mainly considering what Lily herself wants." That afternoon, Rich arrived home earlier than usual, finding Eleanor in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She was humming softly, something she hadn't done in years. "You're in a good mood," he observed. "I'm thinking about Lily, about how she manages to find joy in the simplest things." Rich felt his heart sink. How to tell Eleanor about Valdetta just when she was beginning to open up to the possibility of having Lily in their lives? "Eleanor, I need to tell you something about Lily." The serious tone of his voice made Eleanor immediately stopped what she was doing. "What happened?" "Her biological mother showed up. She wants to take Lily back." Eleanor froze, holding a wooden spoon in the air. "What do you mean, showed up?" Rich explained the whole situation, watching how Eleanor's face changed expression as he spoke, from shock to pain, from pain to anger, from anger to resignation. "So that's it," she said finally, her voice almost a whisper. "I allow myself to start loving a child again, and she's going to be ripped away from us. We don't know that yet. Maybe we can fight it legally." "No, Rich. A child belongs with her biological mother if she has the means to raise her." "But Lily doesn't know this woman. To her, we're the ones who are family." Eleanor began to cry silently, tears streaming down her face without her making any move to wipe them away. "I knew this was going to happen. I knew that if I allowed myself to love again, I'd suffer again." "Eleanor." "No, Rich. This time I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to get even more attached only to suffer when she leaves. But what if she stays? What if we can prove that it's better for her to remain with us? What if we do? Are we going to spend the rest of our lives afraid that her biological mother will show up again and take her away?" At that moment, Tommy entered the kitchen, immediately noticing the tension in the air. "What's going on?" Rich explained the situation to his son, who listened in silence with an increasingly worried expression. "You're going to fight. And for her, aren't you?" Tommy asked when his father finished speaking. "Son, it's complicated." "It's not complicated. Lily is part of our family now. She loves us. We love her. We can't just give up on her." "Tommy, sometimes love means letting go," Eleanor said, her voice choked with emotion. "No, Mom. Sometimes love means fighting." The discussion that followed was the most intense that the Montgomery family had had in years. Tommy argued vehemently that they should fight for custody of Lily. Eleanor insisted that it was better to step away before the pain became unbearable, and Rich found himself torn between protecting his wife and protecting the girl he had come to love as a daughter. "What if we asked Lily what she wants?" Tommy suggested finally. "She's 6 years old, Tommy. She can't make a decision like that," Eleanor replied, "but she can express her feelings. She can tell us where she feels safest and most loved. And if she says she wants to stay with us, and even then we have to hand her over to her biological mother, Do you think it's fair to make a child verbalize a preference that maybe can't be respected? Eleanor's question silenced Tommy. She was right. Putting Lily in the middle of a custody dispute would be cruel, regardless of the outcome. That night, the Montgomery family went to bed with heavy hearts, each dealing in their own way with the possibility of losing Lily. Rich stayed awake late, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the cruel irony of finally having found a reason to smile again, only to see it threaten to disappear. At the shelter, Lily also had difficulty sleeping. She didn't know about Valdate, but she had noticed that Rich was different during the visit that morning. There was something in his eyes, a sadness that she couldn't understand. She got out of bed and went to the window, looking at the stars as she always did when she felt anxious. "Mom," she whispered to the night sky, "if you're up there, can you help me? I think something bad is going to happen to my Hart family, and I don't know what to do." And somewhere in Charleston, Valdate Johnson was also awake, looking at a faded photo of a little girl, gathering courage to face the daughter she had left behind and the family that had taken her place in the child's heart. Valdate Johnson arrived at the shelter on a rainy Thursday, 3 days after Miss Patty's conversation with Rich. She was a 29-year-old woman, thin and tired-looking, with brown hair tied in a ponytail and simple but clean clothes. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a small cardboard suitcase and an envelope with documents. Miss Patty greeted her in the administrative office, discreetly observing the woman who had caused so much turmoil in the lives of everyone involved with. "Lily, Miss Johnson, thank you for coming. I know this is a delicate situation for everyone. I know you must think I'm a terrible mother," Valdate said, her voice low and filled with guilt. "But I need you to understand that I never wanted to abandon my daughter." "Tell me your story," Miss Patty said, maintaining a professional but not hostile tone. Valdate took a deep breath before beginning. "When Lily's father left me, I was 6 months pregnant. I worked in a clothing factory, but I was fired when they found out I was pregnant. Without money, I went to live with my aunt in Savannah." She paused, wiping away tears that began to flow. "I got some temporary jobs, but it wasn't enough. Lily was 2 years old when my aunt died and we lost the house. We were on the streets for a few days, sleeping in parks, asking for food." Miss Patty listened in silence, recognizing the reality she knew well, that of poor women struggling alone to raise children. "That's when I brought Lily here. You said it was temporary, that I could pick her up when I stabilized. But I only got cleaning jobs, which barely paid the rent for a small room. How could I pick up my daughter to starve with me? And why didn't you keep in closer contact?" "Because it hurt too much. Every time I came here and saw Lily, she cried when I left. I thought it would be better for her if I disappeared until I could offer her a decent life." Valdate opened the suitcase and took out some objects. Photographs of Lily as a baby, a small piece of clothing, a worn stuffed toy. "I never threw anything away. I always knew that one day I would come back to get her." "And now? What changed?" "I got a steady job at a cleaning company in Charleston. I have a signed contract. I rented a small but decent house. It's not much, but I can offer my daughter what she deserves, a present mother." Miss Patty studied Valdate carefully. There was sincerity in her words, but also a fragility that worried her. "Miss Johnson, I need to be honest with you. Lily has developed very strong bonds with a family here in the city. She feels loved and safe with them." Valdate's face contorted with pain. "I imagined that this could happen, but she's my daughter. I'm her mother. No one is questioning that, but you need to understand that to Lily, you're practically a stranger. She doesn't remember when you lived together. So what do you suggest? That we talk to the social workers about the best way to reintroduce you into Lily's life. Maybe gradual visits for her to get used to your presence again." At that moment, the door opened and Lily ran in, stopping abruptly when she saw an unknown woman in the room. Miss Patty, has Mr. Montgomery arrived? Not yet, honey. Lily, I want you to meet someone very special. Lily looked at Valdate with curiosity. There was something familiar about the woman, but she couldn't identify what. Lily, Miss Patty said softly, this is Valdate. She is your mother. The silence that followed was deafening. Lily stood still, her big eyes going from Miss Patty to Valdate, trying to process the information. My mother, she asked finally, her voice small and confused. Valdate knelt down, getting to her daughter's level. Hi, my little one. You've grown so much. But I thought my mother had gone away forever, Lily said, taking a step back. I had to go away, but I always thought about you, every day. Lily studied Valdate's face, searching for memories that had been lost in the fog of time and trauma. Are you going to take me away from here? The direct question caught Valdate off guard. I would like us to come to live together, yes. But what about Mr. Montgomery and Mrs. Montgomery and Tommy? Who are these people, honey? They're my family. They love me and take care of me. Valdate felt as if she had been punched. Her daughter, who she had carried in her womb and cared for in the first years of her life, now considered other people as family. Lily, I'm your real mother. These people are just visitors. They're not visitors, Lily protested, her eyes filling with tears. They're my real family. Miss Patty intervened before the situation deteriorated further. Lily, how about you go play in the courtyard? I need to continue talking to Valdate. Lily ran out, clearly disturbed. Miss Patty turned to Valdate, who was crying silently. Miss Johnson, you can see that this is a very delicate situation. Lily has created deep bonds with this family. But she's my daughter. I carried her. I breastfed her. I took care of her when she was a baby. I understand your pain. But now we need to think about what's best for Lily, not what's fairest for us adults. Are you suggesting that I give up on my own daughter? I'm suggesting that we think about alternatives, maybe a visitation schedule, a gradual transition. No, I've spent 4 years of my life gathering strength to get my daughter. I'm not going to give up now. Outside, Lily had found a corner in the courtyard where she always hid when she was upset. She hugged her knees and began to cry, confused by the conflicting emotions she felt. That's how Rich found her when he arrived for his daily visit. Lily, what happened, sweetie? Mr. Montgomery, she ran into his arms. A woman came here saying she's my mother, but I don't want to go away with her. I want to stay with you. Rich felt his heart break. The moment he feared had arrived, and Lily was suffering exactly as he had predicted. Lily, look at me. Whatever happens, I'll always love you, understand? But is she going to take me away? I don't know, sweetie, but I promise we're going to do everything we can to protect you. I'm scared, Mr. Montgomery. What if she doesn't like my drawings? What if she doesn't let me draw? Who wouldn't like your drawings? They're beautiful. But she doesn't know me. She doesn't know that I like to draw under the oak tree, or that I'm afraid of thunder, or that I like peanut butter cookies. Lily's observation hit Rich deeply. At 6 years old, she already understood that love wasn't just a biological matter, but about knowledge, care, and constant presence. Miss Patty appeared at the door, motioning to Rich. Mr. Montgomery, I need to talk to you. Lily, can you continue playing out here? In the administrative office, Miss Patty introduced Rich to Valdate. The meeting was tense from the first moment. So you're Rich, Valdate said, studying him with a mixture of gratitude and resentment. Thank you for taking care of my daughter, but now I can take on that responsibility. Ms. Johnson, with all due respect, Lily isn't a responsibility that one assumes. She's a child who needs love, stability, and people who know her deeply. And do you think I can't offer that? I don't know. But I know that right now she's out there crying, afraid of being separated from the only family she remembers having. She'll get used to me again. We're mother and daughter. Biology isn't enough to create a family, Ms. Johnson. It takes much more than that. The tension between the two was palpable. Miss Patty intervened before the situation deteriorated. Folks, fighting isn't going to solve anything. We need to think about a solution that's best for Lily. The solution is simple, Valdate said. She comes with me. I'm her legal mother. And if she refuses, Rich asked. She's a child. Children don't make decisions about where to live. Some children are forced to make those decisions when adults can't be reasonable, Rich retorted. At that moment, the door opened and Lily entered hesitantly. Miss Patty, can I talk to you? Of course, honey. Lily looked at the three adults, took a deep breath, and asked the question that would change everything. Why can't you be my family together, the biological mother and the heart family? The simple question from a 6-year-old left the three adults silent, forcing them to confront their own limitations and preconceptions about what constitutes a family. Lily's question echoed in the room for a long moment. The three adults looked at each other, each processing the devastating simplicity of the girl's suggestion. Honey, Miss Patty said gently, sometimes situations are more complicated than they seem. But why are they complicated? Lily insisted, looking from Valdate to Rich. You both love me, don't you? So why can't you love me together? Valdate was the first to break the uncomfortable silence. Because, my daughter, I'm your real mother. You belong with me. But Mr. Montgomery is also my heart dad. Why do I have to choose? Lily's childish logic exposed the rigidity of adult thinking about family and belonging. Rich knelt next to her. Lily, adults sometimes have difficulty understanding that love can come from different places. Then can you learn? She asked hopefully. Before anyone could answer, the situation was interrupted by the unexpected arrival of Eleanor at the shelter. She entered the administrative office without knocking, clearly agitated. Rich, I need to talk to you. I couldn't stay at home knowing that... Oh. Eleanor stopped when she saw Valdate, studying the woman who could take Lily away from their lives. You must be the biological mother, Eleanor said, her voice controlled but cold. And you must be his wife, Valdate replied, raising her chin defensively. The tension in the room increased exponentially. Lily looked from one woman to the other, sensing the mutual hostility. Mrs. Montgomery, she exclaimed, running to hug the woman's legs. You came to see me. Eleanor looked down at the girl she had begun to love despite her fears and felt her heart break again. Yes, sweetie, I came because I needed to make sure you were okay. I'm not okay, Lily said honestly. I'm scared. Everyone is talking about me having to go away, but I don't want to go. Valdate approached. Lily, you don't have to be afraid. I'm your mother. I'll take care of you. But I don't know you, Lily replied, hiding behind Eleanor. You don't know that I have nightmares sometimes, or that I like warm milk before bed, or that I need a hug when I wake up scared. I can learn those things, Valdate said, her voice choked with emotion. But why do I need to wait for you to learn if Mrs. Montgomery already knows? Lily's question hit Valdate like a slap in the face. Her daughter, who she had carried and loved in the first years of her life, now felt safer with a stranger. Because I'm your mother, Valdate burst out, her frustration finally coming to the surface. I carried you in my womb for 9 months. I suffered to bring you into the world. I gave up everything to try to raise you. Valdate's raised tone frightened Lily, who began to cry and clung tighter to Eleanor. Don't yell at me, sobbed the girl. I don't like it when people yell at me. Eleanor, who had watched the whole scene in silence, finally spoke. Miss Johnson, can I talk to you in private? The two women went out to the courtyard, leaving Rich comforting Lily in the room. Outside, Eleanor faced Valdate with a frankness that surprised the biological mother. I understand your pain, Eleanor began. Know what it's like to lose a daughter? You have children? Valdete asked, confused. I had one. We lost our daughter 10 years ago, and since then I've lived with a hole in my chest that nothing can fill. Valdete was silent, processing the revelation. When Lily came into our lives, Eleanor continued, I resisted. I was afraid to love again and suffer, but that girl, she managed to touch my heart in a way that I didn't think was possible anymore. And that's why you think you have a right to my daughter? Valdete asked, but her tone had lost its hostility. No, I know she's your daughter, but I also know that she's a child who needs love and stability above all else. And you think I can't give her that? Eleanor studied Valdete carefully before answering. I think you can, but I also think that forcing a child to readjust to a mother she doesn't remember can be traumatic. So what do you suggest? That we think about what's best for Lily, not what's fairest for us, and what would be best for her. Maybe we can find a way for all of us to be in her life. A way for her not to have to choose between her biological mother and the family she has chosen. Eleanor's suggestion echoed the question that Lily had asked minutes before. Valdete was silent, considering the possibility. How would that work? I don't know, but I know that Lily is a special child who deserves all the love we can give her wherever it comes from. When they returned inside, they found Lily drawing on Rich's lap, using the back of some papers that Miss Patty had given her. What are you drawing, sweetie? Eleanor asked. I'm trying to draw a solution, Lily said seriously. Miss Patty always says that when we have problems, we should look for solutions. She showed the drawing. A large house with many rooms and several figures of smiling people in front. It's a house where everyone who loves me can live together, she explained. So no one needs to be sad. The child's drawing revealed the depth of the emotional dilemma that Lily was facing. At 6 years old, she was trying to solve a problem that adults couldn't even address properly. Miss Patty, who had observed the whole situation in silence, finally spoke. Maybe we should seriously consider Lily's suggestion, not literally living together, but finding a way to share responsibility for her. What do you mean? Valdete asked. Shared custody. Lily could spend part of the time with you, part with the Montgomery family. That way, she would maintain the bonds she has already created while rebuilding her relationship with you. Is that legally possible? Rich asked. With the agreement of both parties and approval from the social workers, yes. Valdete was conflicted. It wasn't what she had planned. She wanted her daughter back completely. But looking at Lily, she saw a child who was suffering from the possibility of losing the people she loved. What if I agreed to that temporarily, just until Lily gets used to me again? Biological mom, Lily exclaimed, using for the first time a term that recognized Valdete without completely denying her. Would you do that for me? Valdete looked at her daughter, seeing for the first time not a child who belonged to her, but a person with her own feelings and needs. I'd do anything for you, my daughter, even if it meant sharing you with other people. And you, Lily asked, looking at Rich and Eleanor, would you be willing to share me too? Rich and Eleanor looked at each other. It wasn't what they had dreamed of, but maybe it was the only way to keep Lily in their lives without traumatizing her. If that's what you want, sweetie, Rich said. And if it's what's best for you, Eleanor added. Lily smiled for the first time since Valdete had arrived at the shelter. Then I'm going to have a very big family, she said excitedly. I'm going to have a biological mother, a heart father, and a heart brother. Miss Patty smiled, impressed with Lily's ability to transform a complex situation into something positive. Well, it looks like we have a preliminary solution, but you adults need to sit down and discuss the practical details of all this. Can I participate in the discussions? Lily asked. Why? Valdete asked. Because it's about my life, and I have good ideas sometimes. At that moment, all the adults present realized that they had underestimated Lily's wisdom and maturity. She wasn't just a child to be decided by the adults. She was a person with her own voice and valid opinions about her future. "Of course you can participate," Eleanor said, surprising everyone, including herself. "After all, you're the most important person in this whole story." When they left the shelter that afternoon, things weren't resolved, but there was hope. Hope that love could be greater than pride, that a family could be defined not by traditional structures, but by care and dedication. But not everyone in the town of Savannah would see this unconventional situation with good eyes, and the obstacles that were to come would test the determination of everyone involved. The news about the unconventional arrangement of Lily's family spread through the town of Savannah like wildfire. In a few days, the whole community knew the story of the wealthy businessman who wanted to share custody of a girl from the shelter with her poor biological mother. The first sign that they would have problems came on a Monday morning, when Rich found a group of merchants from downtown discussing his situation animatedly. "I always knew there was something strange about this story," said Mr. Anderson, owner of the fabric store. "A rich man doesn't get interested in a poor child like that without ulterior motives. And does his wife agree with this? What kind of woman agrees to share a child with a stranger?" added Mrs. Davis from the notion shop. Rich stopped walking, feeling his blood boil. These were the same merchants who had abused Lily months ago, and now they felt entitled to question his motivations. "Excuse me," he said, approaching the group. "May I know why you are discussing my private life?" The embarrassment was immediate. Mr. Anderson tried to cover it up, but Mrs. Davis, known for her sharp tongue, didn't back down. "Rich, the whole town is talking. A situation like this isn't normal. How can you want to raise a child together with her mother when you don't even know each other? And since when have you cared about the well-being of children?" Rich retorted, remembering the aggression against Lily. "As far as I remember, some of you didn't treat Lily very well when she needed help." The embarrassed silence that followed confirmed that they remembered the incident. "That was a misunderstanding," muttered Mr. Anderson. "Was throwing hot coffee on a 6-year-old a misunderstanding?" Rich's voice was filled with controlled indignation, but the damage was already done. The rumors spread, taking on a life of their own and turning into increasingly distorted versions of reality. At the textile factory, the situation wasn't any better. Robert called Rich for a private conversation in his office. "Rich, we need to talk about how this situation is affecting business." "How so?" 3 major clients cancelled orders. This week, they say they don't want to be associated with family scandals. Rich sat down heavily in the chair. Family scandals for trying to help a child. "You know how people are in small towns. Anything out of the ordinary becomes a reason for gossip." "And you? What do you think about this?" Robert sighed. "Personally, I think you're doing the right thing, but as your partner, I need to warn you that this could be costly for the company." "How costly?" "If we lose a few more major clients, we may have to lay off employees. And some of our oldest workers are already commenting on the situation." "Commenting on what?" "That you're more concerned about a strange child than about the families who depend on the factory to survive." The accusation hit Rich like a punch. He had always prided himself on being a fair boss who cared about his employees. The idea that they might think he was neglecting his responsibilities disturbed him deeply. Meanwhile, Eleanor faced her own challenges. During a meeting of the book club she had attended for years, she discovered that she had become the main topic of conversation. "Eleanor, dear," said Mrs. Lewis, the president of the club, "we're all worried about you. This situation can't be easy." "What situation?" Eleanor asked, although she knew exactly what they were talking about. "Oh, this story about the girl, sharing a child with a woman you don't even know. That's not natural." "And what would be?" Natural, Mrs. Lewis? Well, if you want a child, why don't you adopt one normally? Why all this confusion? Eleanor felt her irritation grow, because sometimes life doesn't follow the patterns we consider normal, and sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing. But Eleanor, you've already suffered so much with the loss of Isabella. Why subject yourself to this complicated situation? Because Lily is worth it, and because I've discovered that love doesn't have to follow pre-established rules. Eleanor's answer surprised even herself. Months ago, she would have agreed with the women in the club. Now, she was defending a situation that she herself didn't fully understand. The social pressure reached its peak when Valdete lost her job in Charleston. Her boss, who had found out about the situation through gossip, decided that he didn't want an employee involved in messes. "Ms. Johnson," he said on Friday, "unfortunately, we have to let you go." "Why? My work has always been satisfactory. It's a matter of company image. We can't have employees involved in controversial situations." Valdete returned to Savannah devastated. Without a job, she had no way to sustain the shared custody agreement they had begun to structure. "How am I going to participate in Lily's upbringing if I don't even have a way to support myself?" she cried to Miss Patty. "We'll find a solution," the shelter director tried to console her. "What solution? Maybe they were right from the start. Maybe I'm not even fit to be Lily's mother." When Rich learned of Valdate's situation, he felt torn between relief and guilt. Part of him was relieved. Without a job, Valdate would have difficulty sustaining a legal battle. But another part felt guilty for feeling relieved about the suffering of a woman who was trying to get her daughter back. "Eleanor, I need to tell you something," he said during dinner. "Valdete lost her job." "How? Did you know?" "Miss Patty called me. She's worried that Valdate will give up on everything and leave town. And you, how do you feel about that?" Eleanor was silent for a moment, examining her own feelings. "I feel sorry for her, and I also feel guilty for part of me being relieved. It's human to feel that way, but it's not right. Valdate is Lily's mother regardless of her financial difficulties. And what do you propose?" "That we help her. If we're going to share Lily with her, then we need to ensure that she has the conditions to take care of the girl properly." Eleanor's suggestion surprised Rich. "Are you serious?" "I am. Offer her a job at the factory." "Eleanor, Rich, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. Lily needs to see that all the adults in her life are committed to making her happy." That night, Rich made a decision that he knew would be controversial, even for his family. He called Valdete. "Ms. Johnson, I would like to talk to you about a job offer." "Work?" "At my factory. We have an opening in the administrative sector." The silence on the other end of the line was long. "Mr. Montgomery, why would you do that? For me?" "Because it's the right thing to do, and because Lily deserves to have all the people who love her in conditions to take care of her properly. People will talk even more. Let them talk. What matters is Lily." When the news that Rich had offered Valdate a job spread, the reaction of the town was explosive. Some called him a saint, others a madman, and many openly questioned his motivations. "Now he's going to support the girl's mother too?" they commented on the streets. "What kind of man does that?" they whispered in the markets. "There's something very strange about this whole story," they speculated in the bars. The social pressure on the Montgomery family reached a critical point when Tommy came home with a bloody nose after a fight at school. "What happened?" Eleanor asked, alarmed. "Some guys at school were talking bad about Dad, saying he had ulterior motives with Lily. I couldn't take it and I went after them." Rich felt the world collapse. His attempt to help a child was affecting even his son. "Tommy, you didn't need to fight for my sake. I did that because I know who you really are, and I know that everything you're doing is out of love." That night, the Montgomery family gathered to make a difficult decision. Would they continue fighting for Lily, despite the social pressure, Or would they give up to preserve their tranquility? "We can't give up on her now," Tommy said firmly. "But at what cost?" Rich asked. "My business is being affected, you're fighting at school, your mother is being judged by her friends." "Dad," Eleanor said softly, "you taught me that doing the right thing isn't always easy. Lily needs us, and if we give up on her now, we'll regret it for the rest of our lives." "So are we all in agreement?" Rich asked. "All," Eleanor and Tommy confirmed in unison. But not everyone in the town was willing to accept the Montgomery family's decision, and the obstacles that were to come would test not only their determination, but also their ability to protect Lily from the consequences of a battle she had not chosen to fight. The situation reached its most critical point one Thursday afternoon, when a group of merchants and some parents of students from Tommy's school organized a kind of intervention in downtown. Led by Mr. Anderson and Mrs. Davis, they waited for Rich to pass by at his usual time for his walk. "Rich, we need to talk," said Mr. Anderson, blocking his path. "About what?" "About this situation with the girl. It can't go on like this." Rich looked around and saw about 15 people, all with serious and determined expressions. "And what exactly do you want?" "We want you to stop this madness," said Mrs. Davis. "It's bringing bad publicity to our town. Bad publicity for trying to take care of a child. Bad publicity for creating an abnormal situation that's affecting everyone," replied Mr. Harris, father of a classmate of Tommy's. "My son came home with a broken nose because of this mess." "Your son came home with a broken nose because he decided to talk bad about my family," Rich replied, controlling his anger. "Rich, be reasonable," intervened Professor Peterson, principal of the public school. "This situation is creating divisions in the community. Half the people support you, half criticize you. That's not healthy. And what solution do you propose?" "Leave the girl with her biological mother and stop this shared custody nonsense," said Mrs. Davis. "Things go back to normal." "Normal for whom? For you, who don't want to bother with different situations, or for Lily, who will suffer being separated from the people she loves?" "The girl will get used to it," said Mr. Anderson. "Children are resilient." "Resilient?" Rich's voice rose. In tone, "You're talking about a 6-year-old child as if she were an object that can be moved from one place to another without consequences." The discussion was becoming heated when an unexpected voice interrupted the group. "Why are you yelling at Mr. Montgomery?" Everyone turned to see Lily standing at the entrance to downtown, holding Miss Patty's hand. She had left the shelter for a walk when she heard the raised voices. "Lily, honey, go back to the shelter," Miss Patty said quickly, realizing the tension of the situation. "No, Miss Patty, they're talking about me, aren't they?" The embarrassment was immediate. Adults discussing the future of a child in front of her created a deeply uncomfortable situation. "Lily," said Professor Peterson softly, "we're just worried about your well-being." "Worried how?" she asked, demonstrating the insight that always surprised the adults. "Well, your situation is a little complicated." "Complicated because I have a lot of people who love me?" The simple question left the group silent. Lily looked around, studying the faces of the adults who were deciding her fate. "You're the people who threw hot coffee on me," she said, recognizing some of the merchants. The silence became awkward. Mrs. Davis tried to justify herself. "Honey, that was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding is when you grab salt instead of sugar," Lily said with a disconcerting maturity. "Throwing hot coffee on a child is evil." Rich approached Lily, placing his hand protectively on her shoulder. "Sweetie, how about we go back to the shelter? Mr. Montgomery, why don't these people want you to take care of me?" The question was asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. The looks shifted, no one wanting to be the adult who would explain to a child why her right to happiness was being questioned. Because they don't understand that families can be different. Rich replied honestly, but are you going to continue being my heart dad, even if they don't like it? Always, sweetie, always. And is Mrs. Montgomery going to continue being my heart mom? Yes. And is my biological mother going to be able to work at your factory to be close to me? If she wants to, yes. Lily smiled for the first time since the conversation had started. Then it's okay. People can say what they want, but I know who really loves me. And with that, she took Rich's hand and began to walk towards the shelter, leaving the group of adults in silence. That night, the conversation downtown became the most talked about topic in town. But this time, the tone of the conversations had changed. Many people who heard about the way Lily had handled the situation were impressed with her maturity and clarity. "The girl has more sense than many adults," commented Mrs. Rodriguez, owner of the bakery. "That's right. She made the merchants feel embarrassed," added Mr. Thompson from the gas station. The public reaction began to divide more clearly. One part of the population began to openly support the Montgomery family, impressed by Lily's courage and Rich's dedication. Another part maintained its critical position, but more discreetly. It was in this context that Valdit began her first day of work at the textile factory. Rich had prepared the employees for her arrival, explaining the situation clearly and directly. "Valdit Johnson will be working with us in the administrative sector," he announced during the morning meeting. "I know you may have heard rumors about our family situation, but I want to make it clear that here she will be treated like any other employee." The reactions were mixed. Some older employees showed curiosity, others showed skepticism, but Joan, the longtime secretary, surprised everyone. "Mr. Montgomery, can I say something?" "Of course, Joan. In 8 years working here, I've never seen you as happy as in the last few months. If this girl and her mother are responsible for that, then I support them." Joan's comment broke the ice. Other employees began to express support, and gradually Valdit was being accepted into the work environment. But the real challenges were just beginning. At the end of Valdet's second week of work, Miss Patty called all the adults involved for a meeting at the shelter. "We received a visit from the social workers," she announced. "They are being pressured to investigate our unconventional situation." "Pressured by whom?" Rich asked. "By people in the community who made anonymous complaints, questioning whether our shared custody proposal is really in Lily's best interest." Eleanor paled. "What kind of complaints?" "Suggesting that there are improper motives behind your interest in the child, questioning Valdet's ability to be a mother, and mainly arguing that Lily is being used as an object of dispute between adults." Valdet, who had become more confident in recent weeks, began to show insecurity again. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I should give up and leave Lily with you." "No!" The voice came from Lily, who had entered the room without anyone noticing. "Biological. Mum, don't give up on me." "Lily, you shouldn't be listening to this conversation," said Miss Patty. "But it's about me. Why do adults always think they can decide about children's lives without asking what they want?" "Because sometimes children don't know what's best for them," Miss Patty replied gently. "Yes, I do. I know that I want you all in my life. I know that Mr. Montgomery makes me feel safe, that Mrs. Montgomery teaches me beautiful things, that Tommy protects me, and that my biological mother gave me life." Lily paused to breathe, then continued with a determination that impressed all the adults present. "And if the social workers come to talk to me, I'm going to tell them exactly that. I'm going to say that you're not fighting over me as if I were a toy. You're trying to figure out the best way for everyone to love me together." Rich knelt next to Lily. "Sweetie, are you sure this is what you want? Because if it is, we're going to fight for you until the end." "I'm absolutely sure, Hart." "Dad, and you, Valdete?" Eleanor asked. "Are you willing to face this battle with us?" Valdete looked at her daughter, then at the people who had become her unlikely family. For Lily, I face anything. Miss Patty smiled for the first time in weeks. Then we better get ready, because the social workers are coming next week. And we're going to have to prove that our unconventional arrangement is really the best for Lily. That night, for the first time since the situation had begun, all the adults involved in Lily's life felt united by a common purpose: to protect a brave girl who had taught them that love doesn't have to follow traditional rules to be true. But the social workers' assessment would be just the first of many tests they still had to face. The week leading up to the visit of the social workers was one of intense preparation and growing nervousness. Miss Patty organized daily meetings, with everyone involved, structuring arguments and documenting every positive aspect of Lily's development since the unconventional arrangement had begun. We need to show that Lily isn't a child in dispute, but a child loved by multiple people who work in harmony, explained Miss Patty during one of those meetings. And how do we do that? Valdate asked, visibly nervous. Showing that you communicate, that you make joint decisions about her, that there are no harmful conflicts. Eleanor, who had been surprised by her own determination to fight for Lily, made an unexpected suggestion. What if we organized weekly dinners? Valdate, you could come to dinner at our house on Fridays. That way the social workers would see that we're really a family, just a little different. The proposal left everyone silent. The idea of Valdate dining regularly at the Montgomery's house was something none of them had considered. Wouldn't that be awkward? Valdate asked hesitantly. Everything in this situation is awkward by normal standards, Rich replied. But maybe that's exactly what we need to show, that awkward doesn't mean wrong. Lily, who had been included in the planning meetings at her own insistence, clapped excitedly. I'd love it. We're going to be like a real big family. The first Friday of the new arrangement was tense for all the adults, but it turned out to be surprisingly natural. Valdate arrived shyly, bringing a homemade dessert that she had learned to make with a co-worker. I didn't know what to bring, she said, handing the dessert to Eleanor. You brought enough, Eleanor replied with a genuine smile. You brought yourself. During dinner, Lily served as a natural bridge between the adults, telling stories from the shelter, showing her latest drawings, and making the conversation flow organically. Mrs. Montgomery taught me a new shading technique, Lily said, showing a drawing to Valdate. Do you want me to teach you too, biological mom? Of course I do, Valdate replied, thrilled to be included in her daughter's artistic teachings. Tommy, initially skeptical about having Valdate at home regularly, discovered that he enjoyed her company. She was quiet, respectful, and clearly made an effort not to be a bother. Valdate, did you play soccer when you were a kid? He asked during dessert. I did. I was the only girl on the school team. That's cool, Lily. Your biological mother is athletic. That explains why you run so fast. Tommy's observation made Lily smile proudly, and for the first time, Valdate felt that she was contributing positively to her daughter's self-image. But not everything was rosy. At the second dinner, an unexpected crisis tested the stability of the arrangement. Lily had had a particularly intense nightmare the night before and was irritable and tired. During dinner, when Valdate tried to correct her posture at the table, the girl exploded. You can't tell me what to do. You didn't take care of me when I was little. The silence that followed was embarrassing. Valdate turned red, tears forming in her eyes. Eleanor and Rich looked at each other, not knowing how to intervene. Lily, Rich said finally, you can't talk to your mother like that. She's not my real mother, Lily shouted, surprising everyone with the intensity of her anger. Real mothers don't abandon their children. Valdate got up from the table abruptly. Maybe it's better if I leave. No, Eleanor said firmly, surprising even herself. Sit down. We're going to solve this together. Eleanor, Rich began. No, Rich. If we're going to be a family, we need to learn to deal with conflicts as a family. Eleanor turned to Lily, who was crying with anger and frustration. Lily, I know you're hurt and tired, but you can't take out your pain on people who love you. But she abandoned me, sobbed the girl. She made a difficult choice because she thought it was best for you at the time, Eleanor explained patiently. Sometimes adults make mistakes, but that doesn't mean they don't love you. How do you know? Lily asked, looking at Eleanor with red eyes. Because I've also made mistakes. When you came into our lives, I almost didn't let you in because I was afraid. Does that mean I don't love you? Lily shook her head negatively. So why do you think it's different with your biological mother? The question made Lily reflect. She looked at Valdate, who was crying silently in the chair. Biological Mom, do you really love me? More than anything in the world, Valdate replied with a choked voice. Even when I'm bad to you? Even when you're bad to me? Lily got up and went to Valdate, hugging her hesitantly. Sorry, I get angry sometimes, but it's not with you. It's with the situation. I understand, my daughter. I also get angry sometimes. The moment of reconciliation was witnessed by the entire family, and it served to show that the arrangement wasn't perfect, but it was genuine. On the following Monday, the social workers arrived at the shelter. They were two women, Dr. Sarah, an experienced social psychologist, and Dr. Miller, a specialist in family law. Miss Patty, we received several complaints about this child's unconventional situation, said Dr. Sarah bluntly. We need to assess whether it really is in her best interest. I understand it's a delicate situation, Miss Patty replied, but I can guarantee that Lily has never been better. We'll be the judge of that, said Dr. Miller. We want to talk, separately with each adult involved, and especially with the child herself. The individual interviews were intense. Rich explained how Lily had come into his life and how she had changed his entire perspective on family and love. Mr. Montgomery, some residents of the town suggest that your interest in the child may have improper motivations, Dr. Sarah said directly. Doctor, if you knew Lily, you would know that she has a unique ability to awaken the best in people. My love for her is paternal, pure, and genuine. And your wife? How does she feel about sharing a child with her biological mother? Eleanor has developed a maternal love for Lily, and she has discovered that sharing this love doesn't diminish it, but multiplies it. The interview with Eleanor was equally intense. Mrs. Montgomery, you lost a daughter 10 years ago. Aren't you using Lily to fill that void? Doctor, initially I was afraid that that was it. But I discovered that Lily doesn't fill the void left by Isabella. She created her own space in my heart. And doesn't sharing the child with her biological mother generate jealousy? It generates insecurity sometimes, but it also generates gratitude. Valdate gave birth to an extraordinary child. How can I be jealous of someone who gave me the opportunity to love again? Valdate was the most nervous during her interview. Ms. Johnson, why do you agree to share your biological daughter with strangers? Because they're not strangers. They're people who loved my daughter when I couldn't be present, and because Lily is happy with them. Don't you feel that you're giving up your maternal rights? I feel that I'm exercising my maternal rights in the best way possible, ensuring that my daughter has all the love and care she deserves. But it was the interview with Lily that defined everything. Lily, do you like living this way with so many adults taking care of you? Asked Dr. Sarah. I like it a lot. It's like having a super big family. But isn't it confusing to have a biological mother and a heart mother? Why would it be confusing? I have 2 arms and 2 legs, and they work together. Why can't 2 mothers work together too? And don't you feel that the adults fight because of you? They don't fight because of me. They talk about me because, They love me and want to make sure I'm happy. Lily, if you could choose to live with only one family, which would you choose? The question caught Lily off guard. She was silent for a long moment. Doctor, that's like asking me which of my hands I prefer. Both are important. Both take care of me. Why would I have to choose? When the interviews were over, the social workers met with Miss Patty to discuss their initial impressions. This is definitely an unconventional situation, said Dr. Miller. But it's a situation that works, added Dr. Sarah. The child is visibly happy, healthy, and well-adjusted. And the adults? Asked Miss Patty. They all demonstrate genuine love for the child and a willingness to work together for her well-being, said Dr. Sarah. So, what will be your recommendation? The two social workers looked at each other before answering. We're going to recommend that the arrangement continue, but with regular psychological counseling for everyone involved, said Dr. Miller. And we're going to document this case as an example that unconventional families can work when there's love, communication, and a focus on the child's well-being. When Miss Patty gave the news to everyone involved, the reaction was one of relief and joy, but Lily made an observation that perfectly summarized the whole situation. Now I can stop worrying about whether you're going to keep loving me, and I can just enjoy being loved. That night, everyone had dinner together at the Montgomery's house, celebrating not only the favorable decision, but mainly the unconventional family they had built together. 6 months after the approval of the social workers, the life of Lily's expanded family had found a harmonious rhythm, but not without its unique challenges. The girl, now 7 years old, divided her time between the Montgomery's house during the weekdays and alternating weekends with Valdate, who had moved to a small but cozy apartment near downtown Savannah. It was during one of those transitions that the biggest test they would all have to face arose. One Friday, Lily was supposed to go to Valdate's house, as she always did on alternating Fridays. But when Rich arrived at the shelter to pick her up and take her to her biological mother, he found Miss Patty with a worried expression. "Rich, I need to talk to you before Lily knows," she said, pulling him aside. "Valdate called. She's in the hospital." Rich's heart froze. "What happened?" "Apparently she fainted at work this morning. The doctors are doing tests, but they suspect it may be something serious. How serious? We don't know yet, but Valdate asked us not to tell Lily until we're sure of the diagnosis." Rich found himself in an impossible situation. How not to tell Lily that her biological mother was hospitalized? How to explain why she couldn't go to her house as planned? "Where is Lily now?" "In the courtyard, getting ready to go with you. She's excited because she promised to make a cake with Valdate tonight." Rich took a deep breath, trying to find the strength to deal with yet another crisis in their already complicated lives. "I'm going to pick her up and take her home. I'll talk to Eleanor about how to approach this." When they arrived home, Lily immediately realized that something was wrong. "Heart, Dad, why didn't we go to biological Mum's house?" "Lily, your mother, had a problem today and needed to go to the doctor. She asked you to stay with us today." "What kind of problem?" she asked, her big eyes filling with worry. "She wasn't feeling well, and the doctors want to examine her better." "Is she going to be okay?" "We hope so, sweetie." Eleanor, who had overheard the conversation, approached and hugged Lily. "We're going to say a prayer for your biological mother during dinner, okay? Can I visit her at the hospital?" Rich and Eleanor looked at each other. They didn't have that answer. "We'll see how she is tomorrow, okay?" That night, Lily had difficulty sleeping. She woke up twice, crying, worried about Valdate. Eleanor spent the night by her bed, comforting her. "Heart, Mum, what if my biological mother gets very sick? What if she goes away like everyone always goes away from my life?" "Lily, look at me. Your biological mother loves you very much. She's going to fight to get better because she wants to be with you. But what if she can't?" Eleanor felt her heart break. How to explain to a 7-year-old about the fragility of life? Then we'll be here for you. Always. Promise? Promise. On Saturday morning, Rich received a call that would change everything. It was Valdette from the hospital. Rich, I need to talk to you. The doctors... Well, they found something. What did they find? I have a condition in my heart. It's not fatal, but it's serious. I'll need surgery and a long period of recovery. Rich closed his eyes, knowing that the questions that were to come would be difficult. How long of a recovery? At least 6 months. And even after, I won't be able to work as before. I won't be able to take care of Lily the way she deserves. Valdette, Rich, I need to ask you for something very difficult. Can you take care of Lily during my recovery? Officially? Of course we can. But what about after, when you recover? The silence on the other end of the line was long and filled with pain. I don't know if I'll be able to resume shared custody. Financially, emotionally, this illness has made me realize that maybe I'm not the best person to take care of Lily. Valdette, don't say that. You're her mother. Being a mother sometimes means knowing when other people can give more to your child than you can. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the nurse. Valdette promised to call later and hung up, leaving Rich with a whirlwind of emotions. When he told Eleanor about the conversation, she reacted surprisingly. We need to go to the hospital, now. Eleanor. No, Rich. Valdette can't make that decision alone in the hospital, scared and sick. We're a family, remember? Families face crises together. And Lily is coming with us. She has the right to know what's happening and to participate in the decisions about her own life. The hospital was busy when they arrived. Valdette was in a semi-private room, connected to some monitoring equipment. When she saw Lily enter, she began to cry. My little one, you didn't need to come here. Of course I did, said Lily, climbing onto the bed and hugging Valdette carefully. You're my biological mother. I take care of you too. Lily, Mommy is very sick. I know. But you're going to get better, right? You have to get better because I need you. Eleanor approached the bed. Valdette, we talked about your proposal, and we have a counter-proposal. What? That you move temporarily into our house during your recovery. That way Lily can take care of you, and we can take care of both of you. Valdette was shocked. Eleanor, that would be very complicated. More complicated than a 7-year-old child worrying alone about whether she's going to lose another. Mother? But you barely know me. You can't want a stranger living in your house with you. Valdette, said Rich, you stopped being a stranger the day you agreed to share Lily with us. We're family now, in whatever strange way that is. It's true, exclaimed Lily, and families take care of each other. Tommy, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. Valdette, we have a guest room that's never used. It would be nice to have someone there. The generosity of the Montgomery family left Valdette speechless. For years, she had struggled alone against all difficulties. The idea of having a support network was completely new to her. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank us, said Eleanor. You just need to get better, for you and for Lily. Valdette's surgery was scheduled for the following week. During the days leading up to the procedure, the Montgomery family organized to receive her at home. Eleanor prepared the guest room with special care. Rich installed a bell connected to the main room in case Valdette needed help during the night, and Tommy reorganized his schedule to help with the care. Lily, in turn, prepared a series of healing drawings to decorate Valdette's room during her recovery. This one is you getting strong again, she explained, showing a drawing of a smiling woman. And this is all of us together when you get better. On the eve of the surgery, Valdette had a private conversation with each member of the family. With Rich, thank you for saving my daughter when I couldn't do it. With Eleanor, thank you for teaching me that being a mother isn't about possession, but about love. with Tommy. "Thank you for accepting me as part of the family even though I'm just a factory employee." And with Lily, "Thank you for giving me the chance to be your mother again, even after all my mistakes." The surgery was successful, but the recovery would be long and difficult. When Valdate arrived at the Montgomery's house, she was weak and still in pain, but for the first time in years, she wasn't facing a crisis alone. "Welcome to the chaos of our house," Tommy joked, helping her settle into the room. "It's not chaos," said Lily seriously. "It's love, and love is sometimes noisy." During the following weeks, the Montgomery's house was transformed. Valdate, initially reluctant to accept help, gradually learned to be part of a family. Eleanor discovered that caring for Valdate awakened in her a maternal instinct that had been dormant. Rich was surprised at how much he enjoyed having a house full of people who cared about each other. And Lily flourished in the midst of all this. Finally, having all the people she loved under the same roof. It was during this period of intense coexistence that everyone realized something extraordinary. They weren't just taking care of each other out of obligation or circumstance. They were genuinely happy together. But the true revelations about the future of this unconventional family were still to come, and Valdate's recovery would bring to light feelings and decisions that none of them had anticipated. 3 months after Valdate's surgery, the Montgomery's house had transformed into something that none of them had imagined possible. What had begun as a temporary arrangement for medical care had evolved into a unique and deeply satisfying family. Dynamic, Valdate, who had recovered physically beyond the doctor's expectations, discovered that she was in no hurry to return to her apartment. For the first time in her adult life, she experienced what it was like to have a real family, not just people who shared the same roof, but people who genuinely cared about each other. "Eleanor, can I help with dinner?" she asked one Thursday afternoon, as had become routine. "Of course. Lily is asking us to learn how to make that dessert you made at the first dinner here." The two women worked side by side in the kitchen, a scene that months ago would have seemed impossible. Eleanor had discovered that Valdate was an excellent cook, and Valdate admired Eleanor's patience and organization. "Eleanor, can I ask you something?" Valdate said while mixing the ingredients. "Sure. Don't you feel jealous of me for being Lily's biological mother?" Eleanor stopped cutting the fruit and reflected on the question. "In the beginning, I did, but I discovered that my love for Lily is so great that there's no room for jealousy. Besides, you gave me the opportunity to be a mother again. How can I be jealous of someone who gave me such a precious gift? And I discovered that having a partner in motherhood is much better than trying to do everything alone," Valdate replied. "Lily is lucky to have two mothers who love her in different ways." At that moment, Lily entered the kitchen running, holding a that papel in her hands. "Moms, look what the teacher said about my drawing." The naturalness with which Lily called them both moms warmed both women's hearts. They examined the paper. It was a drawing of a large family in front of a house with a note from the teacher. "Lily, your drawing of your family is beautiful. How lucky you are to have so many people who love you." "The teacher said she's never seen a family as happy as ours," Lily said proudly. "And she's right," Eleanor said, hugging the girl. But it was that night during dinner that Valdate made the announcement that would definitively change the course of their lives. "Guys, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, her voice a little shaky. Everyone stopped eating and looked at her attentively. "I received a job offer. A company in Chicago wants to hire me for the administrative sector with a very good salary." The silence that followed was heavy. Lily was the first to react. "Are you leaving?" she asked, her eyes filling with tears. "I don't know, honey. That's why I need to talk to you." "But you're good here with us," Tommy said. "Why would you leave?" Valdate sighed deeply. "Because maybe it's time for me to become independent again. You've been wonderful to me, but I can't stay here forever." Why not? Rich asked, surprising everyone, including himself. What do you mean? Why can't you stay here forever? We're all happy. Lily is happy. You're recovering well. Rich, I can't live off your charity forever. It's not charity, Eleanor said firmly. It's family, but it's not a normal situation. And since when has our family been normal? Lily interrupted with the wisdom of her 7 years. We're different, but we're happy. Why does that have to change? Valdate looked around the table, seeing the faces of the people who had become her family. The job offer in Chicago represented financial independence and a new beginning, but it also represented giving up the first real family she had ever had. I need time to think, she said finally. How much time? Lily asked anxiously. They want an answer by Friday. That's only 2 days from now, the girl protested. Valdate, Rich said, can I ask a practical question? Sure. How much are they offering? Valdate mentioned the amount, which was considerably higher than what she earned at the factory. What if I matched that offer? Rich asked. Rich, you can't do that just to keep me here. It wouldn't be just to keep you here. It would be because you've become a valuable employee and because you're family. Dad is right, Lily exclaimed. You're family. Families don't separate. That night, after Lily fell asleep, the 3 adults gathered in the living room for a frank conversation. Valdate, Eleanor said, I need to tell you something. When you arrived here, I thought it would be temporary, that you would recover and go back to your life. And now? Now I realize that I don't want you to go back to your life. I want you to build a new life here, with us. But why? You already had a complete family. We had a family that worked. Now we have a family that thrives, said Rich. Lily is happier than ever. Tommy gained a sister he adores and a second mother he respects. Eleanor regained the joy of being a mother, and I discovered that family has no limits when there's enough love. And you? Eleanor asked. How do you feel? Valdate was silent for a long moment, struggling with emotions that she had difficulty verbalizing. For the first time in my life, I feel at home, she said finally. Not just in a house, but at home. I feel like I belong somewhere. Then why are you considering leaving? Rich asked. Because I'm afraid that this is too good to be true. I'm afraid of getting too used to it and then losing everything. Valdate, Eleanor said softly, you've already lost everything once and survived. But if you leave now, you'll be losing by your own choice. What if it goes wrong? What if our unconventional family doesn't work in the long run? What if it goes right? Rich asked. What if Lily grows up in a house full of love, with 2 mothers who support each other, a father who adores her, and a brother who protects her? And what if she grows up knowing that it's possible to form families based on love and choice, not just on blood and tradition? Eleanor added. The next morning, Valdate made her decision. She called the company in Chicago and turned down the offer. Then she sought out Rich at the factory. I want to accept your offer to match the salary, she said. Are you sure? Absolutely. But with one condition. What? I want it to be official. I don't want it to be charity or a favor. I want a fair employment contract with clear responsibilities. Done. And I want to contribute to the household expenses. I don't want to be a guest forever. Valdate, are you sure this is what you want? Rich, I've spent my entire life fighting to have a family. Now that I have one, I'm not going to give it up. When they arrived home that night, they found Lily at the gate, waiting anxiously. So, what was the decision? The decision, said Valdate, picking her daughter up, is that Mommy is going to stay here forever. Lily's shout of joy echoed throughout the street. Forever for real? She asked, wanting to be absolutely sure. Forever, Valdate confirmed. Does that mean our family is going to stay together always? It means, said Eleanor, joining the hug. "It means," confirmed Rich, enfolding all his favorite women in his arms. "It means," said Tommy, arriving from school and immediately realizing that something important had happened. That night, Lily made a special drawing, a large house with many windows and 5 smiling figures in front, 2 mothers, a father, a brother, and herself in the center, with her arms open as if she were embracing the whole world. "It's our family," she explained to Miss Patty, who had come to dinner to celebrate Valdetta's decision. "It's not like other families, but it's perfect for us." "It really is," agreed Miss Patty, looking around the table where 5 people who had chosen each other were sharing not only a meal, but a life built with love, patience, and the courage to believe that families can be created in many different ways. 6 months later, when Lily turned 8, she made a special request for her birthday party. "I want it to be downtown," she said, "in the same downtown where everything started." "Why?" Eleanor asked. "Because I want everyone to see that. Bad things can turn into good things when the right people show up in your life." And so, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, Lily's unconventional family celebrated not only another year of the girl's life, but also the first anniversary of their chosen family. In the middle of the party, Lily asked to make a speech. "I want to thank all the people who love me," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Thank you for teaching me that family isn't just who you're born with, but who you choose to stay with. And thank you for showing me that sometimes the best things in life begin in the worst moments." While they applauded the little speaker, all those present, including some of the merchants who had once questioned the family's arrangement, recognized that they were witnessing something special, a child who had transformed not only her own life, but the lives of everyone around her, simply by having the courage to believe that she deserved to be loved. And in that downtown in Savannah, where everything had begun with tears and pain, a different but true family celebrated the miracle of how love can create bonds stronger than blood and more lasting than social conventions.